Good evening. You're watching the news at 6 with me, Shah Russell. The news at 6 is all about the day's biggest developing stories, and we'll be filling in on them over the next half hour. But first, the headlines that we're tracking right now. Tension in Kashmir a day after the death of Hizbul Mujahideen commander Burhan Wani. 3 protesters killed and 70, including police personnel, injured in clashes. After ordering a probe into the controversial Islamic preacher Zakir Naik's speeches, government decides to crack whip on telecast of unauthorized channels, warns them of action if norms are violated. Prime Minister Narendra Modi retraces Mahatma Gandhi's historic train journey in Durban to leave for Tanzania on third leg of African tour tomorrow. And protests resume against the killing of 2 black men. Police used pepper spray to disperse demonstrators, blocking roads in several US cities. Our top story this evening, 3 persons have been killed and at least 50 injured in clashes in Jammu and Kashmir between security forces and violent mobs. The mob set 5 buildings and some vehicles on fire to protest the killing of Hizbul Mujahideen commander Burhan Wani in an encounter on Friday. Curfew-like restrictions were imposed in many parts of Kashmir, where mobile internet services were suspended across the valley and mobile phone services were restricted in South Kashmir. Burhan's funeral was attended by thousands of people, while violent protests were reported from a number of places. Police said over 30 youth were injured in action by the security forces against the violent mobs at several places across the valley. However, hospitals put the number of injured at around 50, which has not gone up to about 70. Condition of the 2 of the injured is critical. In view of the volatile situation, the Amarnath Yatra has also been suspended from the Jammu base camp, with no fresh pilgrims are now allowed to proceed towards the valley. The centre has decided to crack the whip on telecast by unauthorized channels. It has warned them of drastic action if norms are violated. The measure comes in the wake of reports that speeches by controversial Islamic preacher Zakir Naik had allegedly inspired one of the terrorists in Dhaka. Meanwhile, the Shia Muslim community in Uttar Pradesh held protests against Naik.
In one of the biggest breakthroughs in a decade for security forces, 21-year-old poster boy of Hizbul Mujahideen Burhan Wani was killed in an encounter 83 kilometers from Srinagar on Friday. Wani was shot dead along with 2 of his accomplices after a joint team of police and army launched a search operation on the basis of intelligence inputs about the presence of militants in the area.
Burhan Wani had become the poster boy for terrorism in Kashmir. Eliminating him means that a major impetus for gathering terrorists in Kashmir is gone. So I think it's a major achievement for the army and Jammu and Kashmir police. And I think it'll go a long way in curbing terrorism within the valley.
Curfew was imposed and internet services suspended after news of Wani's death triggered protests across the valley. Several separatist leaders were placed under house arrest over fear of law and order situation. Amarnath Yatra was also suspended indefinitely on Friday in anticipation of protests. Pro-Pakistan Hurriyat leader Syed Ali Shah Gilani has given a call for Bandh today. Former Chief Minister Omar Abdullah tweeted that the news of the killing is big news, but also warned of tense days ahead. A resident of Tral, Burhan carried a cash reward of 10 lakh rupees on his head. He introduced a new wave of tech-savvy militants who used social media platform to find recruits and influence Kashmiri youths to militancy. Burhan had joined the militant outfit Hizbul Mujahideen in 2010 when he was just 15 years of age. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
I'm sorry about that. That was the story on what has been happening in the valley, which is under lockdown after Burhan Wani's death. Meanwhile, let's play out that story about Zakir Naik and the fact that the government is now cracking the whip on unauthorized TV channels.
The Dhaka terror siege has not only turned the spotlight on Islamic preacher Zakir Naik, but also on TV channels. The centre says the broadcast of unlicensed channels will be checked and penalized. It has sent advisories to monitoring committees asking them to be on lookout for media content that violates guidelines.
We are issuing an advisory to the district monitoring committees, also to the state monitoring committees, that they should keenly observe the cable operators, what they're broadcasting, and any content being broadcast in violation of these the guidelines, action will be taken against them to the extent that confiscation of their entire broadcasting equipment.
Meanwhile, the Shia community in Lucknow took to the streets demanding a ban on Naik speeches for allegedly propagating terrorism.
मैं हुकूमत हिंदुस्तान से मांग करता हूं कि पीस टीवी को बैन किया जाए और पूरी तरीके से पाबंदी लगना चाहिए पीस टीवी के ऊपर। जाकिर नाइक की संपत्ति की जांच होना चाहिए कि इसकी संपत्ति, इसका पैसा कहां से आ रहा है, इसकी फंडिंग कहां से हो रही है।
Naik's TV channel Peace TV broadcasts out of Dubai. It is banned in UK and Canada but is aired by some cable TV operators in India. Reports said 9 teams from the NIA, IB and other agencies are keeping a tab on Naik's activities while special team are scanning footage of his speeches. On Friday, Home Minister Rajnath Singh asserted that the government will not compromise on terrorism. On Thursday, Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis directed Mumbai Police Commissioner to investigate Naik and his organisation. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
At least 15 Muslim youths from Kerala's Kasaragod and Palakkad districts have gone missing in the Middle East. Family members suspect that they could have joined the terrorist group Islamic State. According to them, a few relatives received messages last week on WhatsApp from unknown numbers and destinations claiming that the missing people had reached the place of the Islamic State. The missing youths had gone for higher religious studies to Middle East and were below the age of 30 years and are highly qualified. Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan has directed the police to launch an investigation into the matter urgently. Recently, the Hyderabad police conducted raids and arrested 11 suspects in the city on suspicion of being sympathizers of the terror group.
അതീവ ഗൗരവമായിട്ടാണ് അത് കാണുന്നത്. അത് പരിശോധിക്കേണ്ട വിഷയമാണ്. പക്ഷേ ആ ഉന്നയിക്കപ്പെട്ട വിഷയം അതീവ ഗൗരവമായിട്ടാണ് കാണുന്നത്.
എത്തിയാണ് നല്ല നിലയ്ക്ക് പോലീസ് വെരിഫിക്കേഷൻ കഴിഞ്ഞ് നല്ല നിലയ്ക്ക് ഇവിടെ എത്തിയാണെങ്കിൽ ഞങ്ങൾ സ്വീകരിക്കാൻ തയ്യാറാണ്. അല്ലാതെ വേണ്ടാത്ത രാജ്യത്ത് വിട്ടുകൊടുക്കുന്ന ഒരു തീവ്രവാദ കേസുമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെടുകയാണ് ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് അവൻ്റെ മയ്യത്ത് പോലും ആവശ്യം ഇല്ല.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi made the historic train journey made by Mahatma Gandhi during the final day of his South African visit. The ride commemorated the incident in which a young Gandhi in 1893 was ejected from a South African train when he refused to move from a first-class carriage because of his race. The encounter shaped his decision to resist racial segregation and other injustices with non-violent protests, first while living in South Africa and then in India. The Prime Minister's ride saw him sitting in a wood-panel car with local officials, but was different from the one taken by the father of the nation. For one, Sunday's train ride took place under heavy security. The PM also opened an exhibition on Mahatma Gandhi's life at the train station in Pietermaritzburg, where he was ejected. Earlier on Friday, Prime Minister Modi made a strong pitch to South African businessmen to invest in India. He also held bilateral talks with South African President Jacob Zuma in Pretoria.
On the second leg of his four-nation Africa tour, Prime Minister Narendra Modi thanked South Africa for its support to India's NSG membership. Modi said India was fortunate to be able to count on old friends like South Africa.
I thank the President for South Africa's support to India's membership of the Nuclear Suppliers Group. We know that we count on the active support of our friends like South Africa.
Addressing a joint press conference with South African President Jacob Zuma, Modi hailed the centuries-old ties between the two countries. He said there was also a need to focus on improving industry-to-industry ties and human capital.
The nature of our developing economies demands that our engagement should also focus on improving our human capital. Our capacities and needs in the fields of vocational, technical and professional education complement each other and can benefit both our people. India is also ready to share its experiences and capacities for the development of small and medium businesses in South Africa.
The South African president also agreed to expand people-to-people contact between the two countries while announcing simplifying the visa regime with India.
We have agreed to expand and improve people-to-people contact through promoting tourism between the two countries. We would like to ensure the Indian side that South Africa is a wonderful tourism destination and that a simplification of South Africa's visa regime with India is underway.
India and South Africa signed 4 MOUs on tourism, cooperation in culture and arts, grassroots innovation and information and communication technology. In addition, the leaders also agreed to work more closely on international issues and emerging global challenges. Modi also marketed India as an investment destination to South African businessmen in his address at the India-South Africa Business Meet in Pretoria.
India is a bright star in the global economy. We are being seen as the engine of global growth. India has become the fastest growing large economy in the world. At a time of global slowdown, we have registered 7.6% growth in GDP.
Later, he visited the Constitutional Hill, the site of South Africa's highest constitutional court, and paid floral tributes to Mahatma Gandhi. He also visited the Nelson Mandela Foundation in Johannesburg, where he interacted with the heroes of the South African anti-apartheid struggle. Modi ended his day with an address to the Indian diaspora in Johannesburg. Modi said India is working to achieve over 8% growth in the coming years and attributed the rise of the country to hope, harmony, optimism, potential and energy.
India today is also a land of opportunity for those who want to connect and collaborate, innovate and create, trade and invest, produce and engineer. India is today one of the brightest spots in the global economy.
Modi will be in Durban today, where he will visit Gandhi's Phoenix Ashram and meet leaders of the African National Congress. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some more national news stories now nationwide. BJP President Amit Shah is in Mao district of Uttar Pradesh today, where officially announced an alliance with the Suhail Dev Bharatiya Samaj Party ahead of the 2017 Assembly polls. Targeting the SP and the BSP, the BJP President said development in Uttar Pradesh is not possible under either of these parties. 4 people were killed and 5 suffered injuries when an illegal shopping complex collapsed in Meerut. The building was being demolished during an anti-encroachment drive. The injured were taken to a local hospital. Angry residents shouted slogans against the authorities for carrying out the demolition in an unprofessional manner. 6 people are feared caught under the debris. At least 5 villagers were killed and 3 others injured in crossfire during an encounter between security personnel and Maoists in Kandhamal district of Odisha. The forces were allegedly sitting on ambush when they were engaged in an exchange of fire from a hillock on the other side of the road. The victims, who were in an auto rickshaw, were caught in the crossfire. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal today flagged off the Aam Aadmi Party's campaign for the 2017 Gujarat elections after arriving in the state for a day-long visit. Landing in Rajkot with his family and party leader Kumar Vishwas, Kejriwal first paid a visit to the Somnath temple. The visit is seen as an attempt to give a push to the party and carve out a space for a third front in the state, which has so far remained a two-party battlefield. The Supreme Court will hear the petition of Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi, who is seeking a stay on the Bombay High Court order refusing to quash the defamation case against him over his remarks on the RSS. The court had earlier adjourned the plea till the second week of May. Rahul had made some remarks holding the RSS responsible for Mahatma Gandhi's assassination. Time for us to take a short break. Lots more on the other side. Do stay tuned.
The sacred relics of Buddha were unearthed in Piprava in Uttar Pradesh. Buddhist monks from all over the world visit the National Museum to pay their respects. These charred bone fragments of Buddha are housed in the gold canopy gifted by the royal family of Thailand.
Welcome back. You're watching the news at 6. Now, in what could be another blow to Indian IT firms, the US lawmakers on Saturday introduced a bill to prevent Indian companies from hiring H-1B employees. The H-1B and L-1 Visa Reform Act of 2016 was introduced by a bipartisan group of 2 US lawmakers in the House of Representatives. If passed by Congress, the bill would prevent Indian companies from hiring H-1B employees if they employ more than 50 people and more than 50% of their employees are H-1B and L-1 visa holders. The bill needs to be passed by the Senate before it's signed into law by US President Barack Obama. The bill hasn't been tabled so far. The similar version of the bill could not gain enough support in the Congress when it was introduced in 2010. North Korea test-fired a submarine-launched missile off its eastern coast, but South Korean Army said that the missile successfully ejected from the submarine's launch tube, but it failed in its early stage of flight and exploded mid-air after a few kilometers. The US and Japan strongly condemned Pyongyang's latest offensive move.
Tensions are high in the Korean peninsula after Pyongyang test-fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile from the southeast coastal city of Sinpo. However, South Korean military called the test unsuccessful as it appeared to have failed in early stages soon after the launch. The latest move from Pyongyang is in direct violations of the United Nations Security Council resolutions which were imposed on North Korea after its earlier missile launches. Japan also strongly condemned the missile launch.
北朝鮮のこの国際社会に対する挑戦は安保理決議に対する明白な挑戦であり、我々は国際社会ともしっかり連携を取りながら断固として北朝鮮を中断をしていかなければならないとこのように思っております。
The US too said that it was monitoring the situation in close coordination with its regional allies. In a statement, the US State Department called upon North Korea to refrain from actions that further raise tensions in the region and focus instead on taking concrete steps toward fulfilling its international commitments. Saturday's launch is Pyongyang's latest show of force and comes a day after Seoul and Washington's announcement to deploy a high-tech US air defense system to counter the North's threats. Also, earlier in the week, the US Treasury Department blacklisted North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and 22 other officials and state entities for human rights violations. This is the first time the United States has imposed direct sanctions on North Korean leadership and is seen as a warning that it will hold those responsible for abuses. The North has angrily protested the US decision, saying the move constitutes crossing a red line. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
A day after a sniper killed 5 policemen at a demonstration in Dallas, thousands of protesters resumed their protest against police killings of 2 black men earlier this week. Protests were held in several US cities, including New York City, Atlanta and Philadelphia. Meanwhile, explosive materials and arms have been recovered from the lone shooter, Mika Johnson's home.
Thousands of protesters returned to the streets in several US cities a day after 5 policemen were killed by a sniper at a demonstration in Dallas. Resuming their protest against the police killing of 2 black men this week, protesters blocked roadways in New York City, Atlanta and Philadelphia. A large number of protesters also turned up in New Orleans and Louisiana. Police in Phoenix and Arizona had to use pepper spray to disperse protesters. Demonstrations also took place outside the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C.
Everyone has to show their support. It shouldn't be confined to one race. It's about equality and all races being equal, and that everyone shows up and shows their support, like I said.
Meanwhile, the FBI forensic team continued to collect evidence from the house of 25-year-old Mika Johnson in Dallas. who killed the 5 police officers on Thursday. Bomb-making material, rifles, ammunition and a combat journal were found at his house. Officials said Johnson, an army reservist who served in Afghanistan, acted alone.
Mr. Johnson, now deceased, was the lone shooter in this incident, and by piecing together what was happening at the time, after we talked to and interviewed all the officers, there was confusion with everybody running around, but this was a mobile shooter that had written manifestos on how to shoot and move, and he did that. He did his damage, but we did our damage to him as well. And we believe now that the city is safe and the suspect is dead, and we can move on to healing.
US President Barack Obama has cut short his Europe visit and will be traveling to Dallas next week. Obama called the assault a vicious, calculated and despicable attack on law enforcement. US presidential nominees Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton also condemned the attack and called for unity and national guidelines about the use of force by the police.
Now, I have set forth plans for over a year to reduce excessive violence, reform our sentencing laws, support police departments that are doing things right.
The deaths of Alton Sterling in Louisiana and Philando Castile in Minnesota also make clear how much more work we have to do to make every American feel that their safety is protected.
Buildings in downtown Dallas were lit up in blue lights to pay homage to the deceased police officers. The recent shooting threatens to plunge the already fraught discussion over race and policing in America to new depths of discord. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some more international news now on Global Buzz. The United States expelled 2 Russian diplomats in response to an attack on an American diplomat in Moscow. The 2 officials were told to leave on the 17th of June. The action comes a month after a Russian policeman attacked the US diplomat near the US embassy in Moscow. However, Russia says the diplomat worked for the CIA and refused to show ID papers. The United Kingdom will send 50 additional troops to Afghanistan for training to counter terrorism and provide leadership training. They will also join the 450 British troops already in the country. The troops will not take part in any combat operations against Taliban and will assist Afghan forces to keep terrorists out of the country. Super typhoon Departak swept through China's Fujian province, causing widespread devastation across the coastal areas. No deaths were reported so far. Normal life was disrupted. According to the local Met Bureau, the typhoon will make landfall in Fujian province around Saturday noon and has issued a red alert of possible weather-related disasters. The China PLA Navy conducted live fire drills between the Hainan Islands and Zisha Island in the South China Sea on Friday to enhance the battle readiness and capabilities of the Navy under any circumstances. China used warships supporting vessels and warplanes from its south, east and northeast sea fleet for the war game. Time now for all the action from the world of sports and Sports Beat. Indian shuttler Ajay Jairam defeated Anand Pawar 21-11, 21-11 to storm into the semi-finals of the US Open. The 28-year-old will now face Japan's Kanata Tsuneyama for a place in the final. However, India's campaign in the doubles event ended as both the men's and women's doubles teams lost their respective matches. Six-time champion and world number 1 Serena Williams will play Germany's Angelique Kerber in the women's singles final at the Wimbledon in a short while from now. Serena has won 5 of her 7 encounters earlier with Kerber. She is also looking to equal Steffi Graf's Open-era record of 22 Grand Slam titles. In the men's final, British top seed Andy Murray will take on Canadian Milos Raonic in Sunday's final. Murray dispatched Thomas Berdych in straight sets 6-3, 6-3, 6-3 to enter his third Wimbledon final. In the other semi-final, Raonic edged a historic win over 7-time Wimbledon champion Rajya in a 5-set encounter. Reigning Olympic and world sprint champion Usain Bolt, who suffered a torn hamstring at the Jamaican Olympic trials, will be named to Jamaica's team for the Rio Olympics. Bolt had been uncertain for the Olympics after he withdrew from the Jamaican Championships last week. Reports, however, say that the Jamaican Olympic Association will list Bolt amongst 4 runners for the 100 and 200 meter race. That's all from us. Goodbye.